And now the fun begins. We are going to be setting up our suede lining. So if you see here, I've got my suede laid out. I got a really good price of this at Tenny Leather. They just happened to have this on sale, so I snatched it up. It's like, I don't know what project I'm going to use it on, but I want to use it on something. And here it is. This is the project. I like to use linings when I can. It just kind of is, again, another bit of detail, something else to really make the project really come together and look really nice. And for belts specifically, because they just kind of, help round things out a little bit. You don't leave this exposed edge or have to, use a lot more dye to dye the back and those kinds of things. So what I'm going to do is lay this out. We're using the back side of the suede. You can generally tell it's the back side because that's where the price tag is going to be, or where they've got. If you see here, there's this like little number that they've put on it. So I'm doing back to back. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not necessarily going to mark right edge to edge for the belt. I'm going to be just a little outside of it. And I'm using kind of this silver pin to mark on this black surface. And the reason why I don't want to be just true edge to edge is because we're going to be putting some glue on the back of this. And I don't necessarily want glue on for the suede portion, right where the belt's going to be. I want to go a little bit beyond it, so that way when I put everything together, there's going to be enough of that glue to meet with the edges. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. Okay, so we've got this marked out. We've gone a little outside of those edges, and now we're going to take some shears, scissors, and we're going to just cut this out. Now we don't want to cut out at the line. Again, we're going to go a little outside of that because we want enough room to play with when we're gluing this all together. So you're going to have a little bit of remnant, a little extra loss there, but I think it's necessary to make sure you get a good bind. With that said, let me get my other scissors here. So one thing I wanted to really make everybody aware of, however, these are not cutting well at all. I'm going to need to get those sharpened. Anyway, so what I was going to say, my mind would work. The glue is not going to be the thing that really holds the suede to the leather. The glue is kind of our thing to help guide us, or keep things in place when we do our stitching. So you're not going to want to rely on the glue to be the final adhesive. It's just the thing to get us started, and it's going to make sure all of our stitching, make sure I'm not doubling up here, just making sure that our holes match up between the suede and the leather. With our suede cut out, it's now time to add the glue. So we're using Echo Weld contact cement. And what we'll do is we'll just apply this to this side of the suede. We'll also apply it to the belt. Let them dry a little bit till they're tacky, and then lay them down, glue to glue side. Make sure they have good contact, and we're going to let that set overnight. And we'll come back tomorrow. They should be good and stuck together, and that's when we can start setting in our stitch holes and get ready for stitching. So I have this wool dauber here, and I'm just going to grab that contact cement and just start laying it in. Going out to that line that we drew here. They do say a thin coat, so I'm putting a lot on my dauber, but then I'm going to end up spreading it out. Unfortunately, I've just got this little dauber and this little thing of contact cement, so it's going to take me a little bit. We're about ready. Just trying to make sure I've got things up on the edges on this. Things are starting to get tacky. So we'll be able to lay this out. Of course, this is going to be a little tricky of a piece since it's so long. But what we'll do is we're going to start down at this end and just roll it down. Yeah, it's getting tacky. So the reason why, again, like I said, we went a little bit beyond the edges here is we just want to make sure that it gets a good contact with the leather. It can be hard to get right to the edges on the leather, but much easier to do it on the suede. Okay, so here we go. We're going to do our best. We've got a little bit of room, wiggle room. to lift up as needed. Just want to check this backside. I'm just trying to keep things taut. So that we're not getting any, kind of bubbling, if you will. I think we're just a little cattywampus, but I think we've got enough wiggle room. That we should be okay. Just barely. You can see where I got a little off. Things started veering that way, but I think all of the leather has made contact with the suede. And that's really what we're aiming for, right? So I'm going to use a brand new boning tool here and just run it along these edges. So once this is dry tomorrow, once this is dry tomorrow, what I'm going to do is then take my rotary blade and my box cutter and just trim off those edges and get a good flush edge. And that's also why I didn't bevel this one, because when you bevel it, you're rounding that out, but now you're trying to add that suede to it, so it can be a little weird. But if I've got a good square edge, now my suede has something good to kind of butt up against. And that's it. That's how you are going to put on that suede, and then we will trim it down tomorrow once we let that sit overnight. So I'm going to do both of these as well. It'll be good. We'll put that suede on here, especially after we skived it. It was another good reason why we wanted to skive this, because then we're going to add in the thickness of the suede here. We'll then do all the hole punches and all that kind of stuff. And it's good to wait to do your hole punches until after you put the suede on. That way, the hole punches are all going to match up. You don't want to do those beforehand, and things can get a little off. And once we do that, we just got to put in these stitches and put in the hardware, and the belt will be ready to be worn. And then it's on to the holster, which I'm super excited about that, especially because the game I'll be using this for is next weekend, so I've got to hurry. Wish me luck. All right, so it's been about 24 hours since we put the lining on our leather. So the glue is pretty good and dry. It's still a little tacky, but it's basically good and held on there. You can see here, it's not pulling off. I mean, if I gave it a really good tug, I could probably really, do some damage, but it's on there for our purposes, because what's going to happen is, while yes, we've glued this lining on, that's not going to be the end result, right? We're not going to be relying just on the glue. We're going to be stitching the lining to the leather, and that's really going to be what's going to hold these two together. We wanted the glue on there to make sure it's kind of good and stuck on the back side, and it's going to make sure our holes for our stitching are going to line up and all that kind of fun stuff. But first, we want to cut off all of this excess suede. So, I can either use my box knife or my rotary blade. Generally for these kind of big long things, I'm going to use the rotary blade for that. And essentially I'm using the leather as my ruler. So I'm going to use the side of the blade here and going to run it alongside the leather. Now that is a little tricky, so you want to go slow so as not to end up turning, because you don't want to turn the blade towards the leather as you're moving it, because then you'll bite into the leather. So you want to be pretty careful with this. In addition, instead of being straight up and down, I'm actually going to do this at a slight angle. I want to kind of bite into the side to kind of shore it up and get it a little bit closer to the edge of the leather. So I'm just going to bite down and go slow. Keep looking to make sure I'm not biting into the leather. Now, we are at an advantage here since we will be doing the edge paint later on. So if you do kind of end up shaving off a little bit of your edge, it's not the end of the world, because you can always, dye it, or when you're going to burnish it again, or all these various things. It's only going to be really bad if you ended up cutting like really deep. But just an edge here or there, just a little shaving, not too bad. I'm just gonna cut off that edge here. And so you see, for these rounded corners, instead of trying to follow that, going around it, I just cut in a straight line. Because what we can do is just basically that, just kind of cut in straight lines around the rounded portion. And I'll show you why we'll want to do that once I finish off this. Okay, so we've got that cut, and we've got a nice clean edge between our suede and our leather. And what I'm gonna do once I get that done is I've got this this boning tool here. It's just a bit of polished bone. This may be synthetic, but you can get them in real bone that's been polished up. And all I do is I take this boning tool and I run it along the edge where they meet, where the two meet, and I'm basically just kind of burnishing again, but I'm just kind of making sure those two pieces meet and they're a little bit more kind of coherent, if you will. As I promised, these rounded areas, let me get back down here. You want to do these rounded areas basically in several straight lines. So instead of trying to curve around, especially with this big blade, just gonna set it up and cut. Cut. And you'll just want to work your way around like that. Okay, and there we have it. A good, rounded, justified leather, suede and leather. Let's take this boning tool over it. I'm treating it like my burnishing tool. Oh, nice. So you can see how quickly we can cut through this stuff and how this is going to add a nice just kind of detail to the back. The black is a good counter, just a good contrast to everything we've done so far. I've actually gone ahead and also cut out fully the buckle piece, even went ahead and did the oblong punch. And some of you may have noticed, I went ahead and punched in all of the holes for the stitch line. The reason why I did all that off camera is because it's pretty loud and my son goes to bed early and he's still a youngin'. So I had to kind of do that stuff because I'm under kind of a time crunch right now. So I had to just get home, do all that right away. But I promise you, we're going to show you real quick why you or how you do that and how you do a hole punch. Just won't be doing it live. But I'll show you how to do it and talk a bit about it. Okay. So we're just going to shave off the rest of this stuff, and then when we come back, we'll talk about putting in those stitch holes.